Welcome again, everyone, in the webinar and joining us live on YouTube and Facebook for tonight's Social Justice in Chicago, the March for Immigration Reform. Here is Elvia Malagón.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Elvia Malagón, and I'm a reporter with the Chicago Sun-Times. I cover social justice and wage gap issues, and my row is one of two rows in the newsroom that is funded by the Chicago Community Trust. So we want to thank them for their generosity. And because of that, all of my stories are never behind a paywall and are open and accessible to everyone. But if you do have the means to support local journalism, we encourage you to consider getting a Chicago Sun-Times subscription. Today, we will be diving into immigration reform and its history here in Chicago. We have a great panel for tonight, and just to introduce everyone, one of our first panelists is Jorge Mujica, and his activism dates back to his time in Mexico City. He's done several different things. He's been a journalist for several Spanish language newspapers, Univision, Telemundo. And he was also one of the organizers that helped lead the immigration marches that we will be talking about today. And now he works for Arise Chicago, where he's a strategic campaigns organizer, and he works with a large group of workers who are interested in organizing for long-term workplace improvements. Our second speaker is Amalia Pallares, who's an associate chancellor and vice provost for diversity at the University of Illinois at Chicago. In this capacity, she oversees UIC's 7 centers for cultural understanding and social change, as well as multiple initiatives for student, faculty, and staff inclusion and equity in the Office of Diversity. She's also a professor of Latin American and Latino studies and professor of political science at the University of Illinois at Chicago. Her books include Family Activism, Immigrant Struggles, and the Politics of Non-Citizenship, Marcha, Latino Chicago, and the Immigrant Rights Movement, and From Peasant Struggles to Indian Activism, the Ecuadorian Andes in the 20th Century. Our third speaker is Artemio Arreola, and he's the Director for Community Relations for the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights. He's also one of the main organizers and co-founders of the marches that we will be talking about today that brought out thousands of people. And he also has used his connections that have connected people both here in the United States and also in Mexico. And I should also add too that si ustedes hablan español y quieren escuchar este programa en español, si están en Zoom, hay un botón que dice Interpretation y allí pueden escuchar toda esta discusión en español. So to start off, we're going to go back to 15 years ago to what some call La Primavera del Inmigrante, the spring of the immigrant, when massive marches broke out across the country. The Sun-Times at the time estimated anywhere from 500,000 to 700,000 people flooded the loop on May 1st, 2006 in support of immigrants. One police official was quoted as saying that it was the largest march he had witnessed in his career. A Brighton Park resident who was among those marching was quoted as saying, "We are not criminals here, we are not a plague." Many pointed to one specific proposed bill at the time, HR 4437, which was known as the Border Protection, Anti-Terrorism, and Illegal Immigration Control Act of 2005, as one of the reasons that this movement was sparked. So I thought we could begin there, and maybe if anyone wants to jump in to kind of explain what this bill was and what was it about it that sparked and sort of mobilized so many people to come together.
I think it was the straw that broke the camel's back. The immigrant community had been living in a decline in respect ever since Governor Pete Wilson of California, came up with Proposition 187, which basically was going to cut out all benefits to all immigrants, regardless of whether they were, legal or not. And it had been in crescendo. So when Jim Sensenbrenner presents this bill to Congress, many people saw it as the last straw, not only immigrants, but many citizens even, because the bill punished anyone who in any way collaborated or helped any undocumented immigrant, meaning a nurse, a doctor, or the driver of a school bus would be affected, would be classified immediately as a federal criminal. And people just didn't want to didn't take it. And that's how, 300,000 people came out to the streets in the first march, and maybe close to 1 million in the second one.
And from what I read, there were a couple before the May 1st march. There were a couple of neighborhood marches that happened. I think there was one in back of the yards on the southwest side. But there was also a pretty large mobilization that happened the March before. So I was wondering if anyone wanted to talk a little bit about, especially since we have some organizers here, how did you guys start to plan? Can you walk us through the organizing and kind of what steps you guys took?
I can start. I think those marches you're talking about, it was in 2005. And it's because like in the summer, start talking about the Sensenbrenner bill. But many people doesn't believe they can make it through because the Jorge just explained it. This is going to affect everybody. What this is too much. They cannot go nowhere. But 2 radio stations, La Ley and La Que Buena, with El Pistolero and El Chocolate, some of the radio guys start making noise in the neighborhoods in 2005. And when this happened in December, I guess 16 or 15 of the December, I was in Puerto Rico with the SCIU. I remember when they passed. And everybody commented about, oh my God, we had to do something, right? And I remember the first meetings about, we compared the marches in 2005 and the neighborhood. He said, we don't have to go to our neighborhood. We have to go downtown, right, Mújica? He said, and it was great, those marches. And many people telling about the marches of the radios because the radio guys was in the front. And but this is the real. He said, we have to go downtown, close downtown on Friday, March 10th, not on weekend, a week working day. I don't know if Amalia or anyone want.
That's correct. 2005 was mostly in response to the Minuteman project. The Minuteman, this vigilante faction created the Illinois Minuteman project, and they started, demonstrating and putting public pressure here in the state of Illinois, and many people didn't like it. So yes, indeed, a couple of radio personalities organized the march in back of the yards, July 1st, 2015. And the Sensenbrenner bill was just beginning to show up, but people were demonstrating already against the Minutemen. So, again, the community was feeling more and more pressure, and it was starting to react.
Yeah, I just want to say that part of what led to the 2015 and 2016 mobilization, to track back history, really you have to start for this contemporary resistance history in 1996, and the bill, the IRCA bill in 1996, that led to a couple really important things. One is a kind of real militarization of the border, securitization of the state, and everything that was being done there, which included what the state was doing, what the Minutemen were doing, what was happening at the border. And another thing were all the legal changes that were making it very difficult for undocumented immigrants to sort of have a judicial process that would be considered fair. A lot of the discretion of judges was removed. A lot of new laws were created that really restricted their opportunities. And even people with green cards were also restricted and were imprisoned for maybe things that had happened years before. So this, when Jorge says this was just like the limit, it had been a decade of these kinds of policies to the extreme of getting to that bill in 2006 that would have really further criminalized undocumented immigrants, as well as people who helped them in any way, and also had all these policies that would have even put more resources in the border restrictions. So that's what we were looking at. That's why people were mobilizing.
And I do remember this, Amalia Brindes, at 2006, when Bill Clinton was the president, a lot of national organizations, I'm still not working in ICER, I'm in Casa Michoacán, but I'm in La Federación. And I remember when they talking about, we fixing later. That's okay. You know, this is bad. I know it's bad. Everybody know it's bad. This is bad. But we will fixing later. And you know what? Later is worse and worse and worse. And until now, it's worse. And we never fixing those damage in 96. Thank you, Amalia.
And Amalia, around this time, you and some other people at UIC started to really hone in and do some research about sort of this mobilization that was happening. Can you talk a little bit more about that and what prompted you guys to specifically look at what was going on here in Chicago?
Well, what prompted us was what was going on everywhere in the country, and Chicago seemed to be a great example of sort of, it was happening outside of, UIC is an urban campus. It was happening outside our doors. Our students, our undergrads, our grad students, their families, everyone was talking about this and experiencing this. And so for us to be professors in the classroom, it just seemed impossible to ignore this. And we cared greatly about what was happening in our communities. And to give you a sense of the group of students and undergrads and grads and faculty that got together and said, we have to do something. We have to study this. We have to study this while it's happening. March 10th had already happened and had been an unprecedented large march. And we knew one was coming in May 1st. And we're like, okay, we are going to need to really follow this march, do a survey of this march. And then everyone had different projects. I remember one grad student was very connected with the churches. And just like Artemio says, that's what the unions were talking about. It was also the conversation in the churches. So the idea was that a project would try to show the complexity of this, that it's not one organization or, type of individual, that it was many organizations coinciding, many different types of organizations coinciding in this moment. And to just finally, to give you a sense of that energy, usually when you do a research project like this, you have to, you want to employ students, you want to make sure everyone or gets academic credit or something. And we didn't have time. We didn't have time because May 1st was coming. And we asked students who, by the way, their finals were happening, and students begged us to volunteer to engage in this survey that we did of the May Day March. And because they wanted to. And I've never seen that kind of energy, so many people wanting to do this because it was the right thing to do, to be able to study what was happening.
And not only the survey you guys running, I do remember you came to many meetings, lay meetings in Casa Michoacán when you organized. You and what is the name of the other teacher?
Nilda.
Nilda, exactly. You, Nilda, and really bring sometimes some students. They really help us take minutes and helping out with the press releases with Kathy. It's a lot of help from everybody.
What were those meetings like? And Artemio, especially one thing that I read about was the importance and the connection of these groups that were here in Chicago, but had a connection to Michoacán or a connection to like their home state that, knew each other because of that. And it seemed like that was one of the ways that people organized.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think two factors in here. That time we do have one program we call in 3x1, and this make strong the home club associations, the federaciones. They are really strong because those clubs help in her town. They really connected. Another thing that we do have the Instituto de los Mexicanos en el Exterior, and they got the CCIME, the advisor, the consejeros. And it's like around 200 consejeros around the country. In 2005, the second generation came. It's like in 400 leaders around the country. It's easy to disseminate the information all over. And also, this is connection with Mexico because something historical happened in the 2006. For the first time, the Mexican community, we able to vote from the United States, well, from all over the world and the exterior. Right, it's an excitement to participate in the elections, and even as an election here in the United States, presidential election 2006. But this election to Mexico make a lot of reconnected with the parties, with civic engagement, civic participation, and those consejeros, and like 4, 5, 10, and every single main city around the country. When we start made the marches, the second march in May, this is really help because we just give you the blueprint, how we did it here, the committees, working committees, blah, 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 the permit, the insurance, blah, everything, and they replicate, easy to replicate, is why we do not have only marches here in Chicago, it's around 200 marches around the country. And not only in May Day, April 10, they also mobilize less cities, but also, a lot of national organizations with some of the unions, they push April 10. I'm not sure exactly why. Maybe Mújica have. I remember why, but this happened. And also ended in May 1st. We go all the way to the Labor Day in September. Walk to Batavia. It's a big year of excitement in the community. And it's not only kill or stop Sensenbrenner, because I remember in the march we said, today we march, tomorrow we vote, and also it's not clear whether the bill we want to move, but we also want a move in the bill, but there's not a bill. And later they came like Mújica calling Frankenstein bill, or I'm not sure exactly what.
Yeah, I mean, Chicago surprised everyone, including us. We didn't believe on March 10 that we would have 300,000 people. Yeah. We were betting for 50,000, 80,000, maybe, given the prior year immigration march in back of the yards, etc. But Chicago surprised the whole world. 300,000 people in the street in downtown Chicago on a Friday, a working day, and so many people left work and walked out. And then the next week, Milwaukee marched, and the following week, Los Angeles marched. And we got together, and some people said, okay, we have to march again next month. And they organized marches for April 10th. And we all started organizing marches nationwide, one single day for May Day, May 1st, 2006. But then Artemio's right. I mean, we didn't stop there. President Bush addressed the nation on May 15, I think, saying we have to do something. And yes, of course, they had to, but they didn't. And then we went on to march to Batavia, because at the time, the Speaker of the House office was right there in Batavia. And then, yes, nobody knows exactly, but we believe that the effect in the election, the marches had an effect in the election. So the Democratic Party won both chambers in November of 2006. And then we went on to 2007. And there was a bill, the Sensenbrenner bill, the Frankenstein bill. I call it that because it was put together, including Sensenbrenner measures, but also legalization. So it was a hodgepodge of, let's put everything together and see what happens. And of course, nothing happened. By the end of the year, 2007, when the White House and Kennedy and McCain came up with the so-called Great Agreement, Republicans simply said, no, we don't want it. We want the Frankenstein bill or nothing. And we didn't have immigration reform. And there we are so far, 15 years later.
And I want to highlight about, we always talking about the first march is in March 10 here in Chicago, but actually it was not the first one. Well, the first one is in Washington, D.C., March 7, because the day the bill passed, we was in Puerto Rico with the Hispanic caucus from the SEIU, and everybody commit to come and work. And Jaime Contreras from SEIU, they take seriously and go and organize right away in Washington, and they come in September 7th. But the Chicago is so big, then forget it. Like they have a historical march, like 10,000, 15,000 people, when it, like here 300,000, or it's everybody focus here. Well, that's great.
Amalia, I was going to ask you about one thing that I read that seemed to be different than past protests or marches was the incorporation of the family, like people taking, not just adults, but young children coming along, people bringing kids in strollers, why was that so important? And why was that really like the first time, or what was that shift?
Well, I think other marches that had occurred years before that were not, when you think about sort of the different kinds of marches, they tended to be, in my memory at least, they tended to be anti-war marches, different marches that happened around, those issues, or sometimes, workers' marches, but there had not been, so usually you were used to having adults, mostly adults, whether they were young people or older people. And I think that the importance of seeing families, entire families, children, people with strollers, multi-generational march, I think was really important, because I think it made visible to so many people how this was a movement about families and how everyone was impacted. So people often talk about, the 11 million undocumented immigrants, but what they don't think about that most of these immigrants many of them are in mixed status families where there are people who are undocumented and people who are not. So the universe of people who are impacted by these policies are way over 11 million. And so to make that visible, to bring your children and your family, to show everyone who is impacted by this, everyone who cares about this, everyone who wants to do something about this, and everyone who the outcome of this is going to affect them. And so I think that was very important to show it's not just us as individuals. It's not just us individual immigrants who have been criminalized as these people who broke the law. It's families, it's citizens, it's everyone of all the generations and ages who are part of the struggle.
Elvia, I think it's very important of Amalia tell us what the survey, because she talked before about the survey, and now when she framed it like it's a family, because it's people from all over the world, and also it's not just undocumented. Many people see the full of the streets of people, and everybody says, oh, they are undocumented. And other people saw river of money, opportunities to make business. But it's great with the result of the survey, because really they tell us what the support of the society, and it's not really majority of them, they're not undocumented, and really she get the opportunity to document this, right, Amalia?
Exactly. We showed a very high percentage. Over, I don't remember exactly amount, but it was, over half of the people were not undocumented. And so that again sort of showed this is a broader issue. And sometimes people just assumed that everyone's out on the street is because they're out for themselves, because they're undocumented. But it's not that at all. It's everyone who was impacted and cared about this. Many, many citizens.
And I was wondering if each of you guys could kind of walk us through just what your memories or recollections are of that day. What do you remember from that march, if you could think back to 15 years ago?
Well, I remember the first, like a week before the march, when we was with Jorge Mujica, and I'm thinking one of the houses because we come together, and no buses around, all over around the metro area and the cities, no buses. When everybody start making everything, what happened here is when we start really seriously about, wow, can be bigger than us. We not really believe how many people really. This is one. Second, I'm thinking the boycott to Miller, and this is historical. Next day they contact us. What's happening? What do we want? I never forgot. And also, since we are still in the Federal Plaza, March 10, with even the reporteros, maybe Antonio was right, or other people, another asking what is next right away without plans. Mayday, because we are workers, right? This is like things, boom, on the time. Mayday. Sensenbrenner, a lot of corporations saw as an opportunity, and that's great how much they come to look for us. Hey, stop! Don't boycott me.
and I think if we go a little bit deeper into the issue, many families, I think most of the families, from immigrant families, are mixed. On one side, there's a citizen, and on the other side, there's an undocumented person. So this is a family thing. It's a societal thing, and I think everybody was willing to express and say something very basic. The immigration system in the United States has to change. There are rules to come here legally, but it takes you 24 years to come here legally. There are not enough visas for workers. Forget about residents, forget about citizens. People don't want to become citizens. People want to come here to work, and the economy needs them, but there are no visas for them. So they jump the border, so they come on a tourist visa and they overstay. And that is what families felt, that something has to be done in order to fix the immigration system. Immigration is not the problem. The problem is the system, the visa system in the United States. And that was incredibly clear for everyone, I think.
I think, it's hard to say which day, because there was a March 10th, there was a March May 1st, there was a March, another large one, mega march on May 1st, 2007. There was another large one in May 2008. So this was really a time of mega marches. But I think that one thing that I really remember as we were sort of documenting all this and interviewing people and everything was to kind of see people coming out, with their, with a kind of desire for dignity. Like one of the things that most struck me as we walked, I was with a group of Puerto Ricans walking from Humboldt Park to downtown, which, by the way, Puerto Ricans are all U.S. citizens, but there was a strong contingent of Puerto Ricans engaged in this march and participating in this march. And we walked through this street that had restaurants, and all the restaurant workers came out and greeted us and waved us. And you felt charged with, like, we need to go do this for them. And then when we crossed the bridge downtown, all these 18-wheelers started honking at us. And so you felt this universe, and everybody felt this universe because these things hadn't happened before. Nobody had seen the amount of people who cared deeply about this and who were supporting this until these marches happened.
Another moment still in my mind is May Day and May Day 2006, when we was in the Grand Park. So a million people there. It's huge. It's full, right? It's a moment with all the religious leaders in the top of the stage. Quiet. Everybody quiet, and they let it go. Some palomas, but also some of the main labor leaders. And they together, many people say, "Oh my God, I never saw this." With the main religious leaders all are together, hand by hand, pray, or very deep moment. It's very easy with those millions or thousands of people, easy to excitement, but it's hard to keep quiet. There's a moment with everybody quiet. I'm still remember here, this is one, and the other one is when we are walked to Batavia from downtown, from Chinatown, and we sleep in a mosque. This is very show diversity of, it's not just Latinos, it's not just immigrants from all over the world. This was amazing. This was 5 days to Batavia, because everybody contribute. The neighbors, when we walk in the street, they clapping. Only I think Franklin Park, Villa Park, the migrant was waiting for us. Everybody is scared when we are arriving, and they see big lights, big trucks, blah, 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 and a plane follow us. Was amazing.
Actually, if I can take a moment, there are some comments here in the chat. There's someone by the name of Rob insisting that people from south of the border do not want to follow the rules. Let me stress again, if you follow the rules, it will take you 24 years to come legally to the United States. And if you have a job, if there are jobs available in the United States, nobody's going to be waiting for you 24 years to come. And besides, I don't want to even get that, but that's a racist comment, because it's not people from south of the border. Nowadays, we have Chinese undocumented, we have Korean undocumented, we have Canadians undocumented. So it's not people south of the border, okay? It's people from all over the world that this economy in the United States has a chance for them to work, but there are no working visas. The visa system in the United States is based on relatives, family. So my brother, my sister, my son, my wife, but not workers, okay? So forget about 500,000 family visas a year. What we need is 500,000 work visas a year. I think that's got to be clear somewhere.
And Jorge, the marches continued. I mean, 2005, 2006 was when they were really big. But beyond that, I saw a couple of news clips where you were still kind of continuing them on a couple years later. Can you walk us through what happened after those big marches?
Well, what happened, it was the Frankenstein bill first. That was an agreement between some Republicans and some Democrats. And as I was saying, it was a hodgepodge. Let's put everything together and see what happens. It didn't pass, obviously. The grand agreement between the White House and Kennedy and McCain didn't pass. And the next year happened exactly the same thing. And then, this big thing about electing Obama. So let's just vote for Obama and the Democrats, and we don't need to march again because everything will be solved by the Democrats. And in 8 years, the Democrats didn't do anything. Of course, during the first 2 years, they had both houses in Congress, and they didn't act on immigration reform. And the following 6 years, the Republicans had majority, so there wasn't a chance to do anything. And then we had Donald Trump, and there wasn't any chance to do anything. And now we may have the chance to do something. But again, a couple of things happened there in between. The issue was politicized. From being an economy issue, a visa system issue, it became a political issue. I still disagree with the notion of path to citizenship, that any legalization bill has to have a path to citizenship, because I believe it's a trap. No Republican ever is going to accept an easy path to citizenship for people who, when they become citizens, are most likely to vote for the Democratic Party. So it's a trap for the Republican Party. Republicans are not going to accept any path to citizenship that doesn't imply 15 years in the waiting or something like that. Leave citizenship as it is, as an option, and let's only talk about the legal way to come here legally and to work legally with full rights. And then if you ever decide to become a US citizen, then that's optional, but the insistence on a path to citizenship has impeded, I think, the conversation. So the issue was incredibly politicized. Donald Trump, you know, his campaign launch was based on immigration and was based against the idea of immigrants becoming citizens, blah, 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 blah. So as long as we keep politicizing the issue, there is not going to be the systematic economic visa system change we need. We need legalization with full rights, and that's it.
Yeah, and that kind of takes us to, you know, what is going on right now, 15 years later. There's still, you know, the things that I saw people were quoted and saying as, you know, they want immigration reform, legalization. That's something you still hear today. So I wondered, especially we're several presidents later, what you all think of, I'm not sure if you, about Biden's proposal or some of the proposals that regarding immigration. I know, Artemio, you said that you're kind of going to Springfield soon. If you could talk a little bit about that.
Springfield is about, you know, try to, you know, few bills. One is the continuation of the Trust Act, like a few years ago, Rauner signed up, even with the Republican governor, is to divide the work of immigration and police, to create a more trust, what we call it the Trust Act, and the people to able to call the police with no deportation or we not with the ICE. Unfortunately, that time to pass few things we concess and take it out. And now we wanted a full elimination, zero collaboration. And I hope this can make it. And also to end it, the contracts in the private detention centers for ICE. The bill is still on the Senate. I hope they can pass. Either I'm not sure if the session finished today or tomorrow, and then they can go to the House. And on the federal level, I think the bill Joe Biden sent it, and Bob Melendez lead with the Representante Linda from California. That's good because the criminalization is still in the other areas, right? And this is, for example, in 2012 when Obama put the DACA, I remember they talking about potential 2.4 beneficiaries from this program, and we ended with 670,000, even no 700,000, less than 7,000. This means only 1/3 of the potential beneficiary. Why? Different reasons, but the main reason is the time, because he said from this time to this time, the other people out. And the second is about 3 misdemeanors or 1 felony. They can get out, be out of the program. But for example, one of the felonies is a re-entry. If you talk to any Mexican undocumented, what happened when the migrant catch you? They say, I'm going back again tomorrow. They got it, but they got coming back again and again. They got re-entries, okay? What happened, and this continue the same, but they not be able to legalize because on Obama and even in Trump, the target people, it's not criminal, but the target people is the one they have re-entries. They go to houses, they go find it. It's not because they not criminal. If they are really serious crime, they be in the jail, same as everybody, right? And I think this the bill of HR 6, who is Alex Padilla from California, have the problem. Same the Dream Act with the Dick Durbin and Lindsey Graham, they have the same problem. Even the farm workers bill, they got the same problem, worse, because they also accepted the E-Verify. This is still criminalization insert of the immigration. It's why we fully support the bill of the Congressman Jesus Garcia, when they separate criminal, the immigration, separate. If you are doing something bad, you have to pay same as everybody. but it's right now the immigrants pay double, because even you already commit something and pay for, when you face to immigration, you have to pay again. And I think this, the bill of Dream and Promise Act 2021 from Joe Biden, sponsored by Bob Menendez, this is the best. Everybody know. In order to pass something on the Senate, they need 60 votes. Do they have? Even the Democrats not fully agree. What do they got to do? I think the chance do they have is during this period of time about the budget reconciliations and try to give you some kinds of legalization with Mújica put in here, right? Some permits, paper, whatever, for essential workers. I don't know exactly what means essential workers, can be everybody, but there, DACA, TPSs, figure out because they are really keep the country alive. They're the more affected, they help, and they really need it. I think this is good opportunity, but I still don't see the leadership really pushing to include the essential workers and the budget reconciliation bill. And why we are pushing here? Because they need a simple majority, 51 votes. And they got 50, okay? But they also have the Vice President Kamala Harris bill where they make 51. And we were talking easy, but politically, I don't know. We still want to push their way, because in the Senate road, it's complicated. It's not impossible, but it's complicated.
And Artemio is completely right. One single Democratic senator that opposes a bill, it really impedes to approve a bill in the Senate. There has to be, the 50% plus one vote, and that's impossible to get right now. So it's not only the Republicans' fault, it's also the Democrats' fault. Democrats have a lot of very conservative people in Congress, and they are nowadays maybe the main obstacle for this. President Biden presented a very comprehensive bill. I'm really gladly surprised. But then, like within a week, the Democratic Party itself eliminated it, said, no, that's not possible. So now they are dividing by piecemeal essential workers, DACA, TPS, I don't know what else, agricultural workers. And the more they make pieces of this bill, the less people are going to become legal. And the less people who become legal means the problem is going to continue forever and ever and ever. I mean, what good is to legalize 5 of 11 million people if we are still going to have 6 million undocumented people in the United States? It doesn't make sense. But again, this became a political issue. So there's no reasoning in politics. There's only interests in politics.
Well, I mean, I agree with Jorge, but I have a little bit of a different perspective because you can also think that the attempt to have a comprehensive bill for many, many years has also been a problem. A broad comprehensive bill, oftentimes with opposition from more Republicans and more conservative Democrats, has led to deals where, okay, you can have this, but now we're going to do more with the border. Now we're going to do more with, securitization, more with punishment of immigrants. And it's always ended up in this thing that has led to more and more criminalization of immigrants, more and more securitization, and more restrictions. So I think one of the things that's unique about Biden's bill is that it starts with the premise that we're not doing any of that. We're just doing these things that are going to help regularize immigrants, that are going to help give them a path to citizenship. But the problem is that that desire to do everything comprehensively, we have to be concerned that it's going to come back with this other kind of, well, no, we're going to push back and we want all these other things. The Republicans have done a lot of what they have done without comprehensive bills. And piecemeal through the years, they have been very effective. And so I think that, Jorge, while I understand your concern, which is a very legitimate concern, I assume that some of the logic of these Democrats is, let's do what we can do and let's move forward in some things. And you're right, it's not going to result in the legalization of all millions, but let's do this piecemeal because it's the only way to move forward. So it's political, it's instrumental, but it's also the way Republicans have worked.
You're right. They even bring that every single thing bad. And only our big victories around the country is on the state level. You know, California, New York, Illinois, and maybe, you know, New Jersey and other states. But on the federal level, really nothing good we win. And it's not like because the one they're talking about, la enchilada completa, right? But not and the bad things, even the Sensenbrenner and 206, we oppose. Piece by piece, the Republicans be able to move. Every year they move something.
And an answer to another question, what about corporations and Chamber of Commerce and other business interests are landing on the Dream and Promise Act? Yes, of course, Chamber of Commerce are looking for workers, which is the same thing I was talking about, you know, a little bit a while. They would love to have legal workers, mostly if they somehow, you know, some kind of have some kind of degree, they are prepared, they are educated. Of course, they are going to push for the portion of workers they want. The problem is, you know, you don't need much skills to work in the fields, in agriculture. So the chambers would not push for that, only agricultural businesses. And who's going to push for TPS? TPS is like everyone from a different country. So nobody's going to push for them. Nobody's interested in them. We only want the most educated people. We don't want the other ones. Well, you don't need a lot of skills to be a maid in a hotel, yeah, but they need a working visa. They need a visa to be here working legally and living here legally. We don't have anybody pushing for what? Restaurant workers, dishwashers. We need visas that allow them to come here, live here legally, and work here legally. But nobody's going to be pushing for them. Oh, well, maybe the Chamber of Commerce of the restaurant industry. We cannot go for the pieces by pieces, this piece here and the other piece there. We have to go for a comprehensive immigration system that solves all the problems.
One question that we had gotten ahead of time that from a reader asked about how organizers could merge the energy behind the immigration movement and the Black Lives Matter movement to create more unity among Black and Brown communities. I wonder if anyone wanted to talk a little bit about that.
I mean, I can say something. I think we recently saw the mobilization around the murder of Adam Toledo as something that was a kind of moment where you see around certain kind of issues that are impacting both communities. I do think there are opportunities there to really work together and to really understand what each community is going to and what we share. I mean, I think that for immigrants, I will say that one change we've seen in the movement since 2006 has been a real 2006, it really epitomized the challenging of the criminalization of immigration, saying just because we crossed the border, just because we, didn't come in the way that is very restricted and very hard to come by, doesn't mean we are criminals. And the state is criminalizing us. Criminalization is a process that the state makes and the state can undo. It's not necessarily something that says something about somebody's humanity or ethics. So the point is that while we have moved forward so much in the immigrant rights movement around that, around challenging the notion that people who committed a felony because they re-entered are defined as criminals and all that, we have a lot to do still in the Latino communities in terms of like how we think about interaction with the state, interaction with police, how we think about not not being afraid to say these civil rights violations, these human rights violations against all Latinos that are beyond immigration policy that have to do, we also need to advocate around that. And we haven't done it in the way that the Black community has done it. But when these things happen to us and to members of our community, like happened with Adam Toledo, we have to do that. And when we do that, that's where points of really important areas of working with Black communities can really happen and can really develop. So I am hopeful about that.
I'm still remembering 2006 when we organized the marches. Reverend Jackson came to Casa Michoacán, and he also participated, and also he highlighted and stand up and talking about the Black and brown unity, you know. And the main thing, and he was right? We live together in the same neighborhoods, and the police attack the Black, but you know, the ICE attack the immigrants, but not only the ICE, you know, also the police attack the Latinos in our communities. And I do remember, you know, not only him, you know, the Farrakhan and another Black leaders came to in 2006 with us. He said, you know what, we have to come together in fighting. And it's the reality today, you know, this you know, brutality police to the Black, you know, it's us, ICE are doing. And they killed many of our brothers, not just in the border, you know, the detention centers. This is like huge profit, and they never really take care. They make a lot of money. There's a business through those detention centers where they abuse to our community.
And of course, you know, immigration authorities do not respond very well to so many things. There's been literally hundreds of immigrants who contracted COVID, and many of them died in detention centers because immigration didn't treat them, you know, the way you need to treat a human being. And the immigration is already being sued for that. And now there's a rumor that they are denying vaccination to immigrants in detention. So it's going back to what Amalia was saying before, respect. You know, immigrants don't deserve respect because they are not Americans, period. You know, or because they are south of the border. Give me a break. You know, if you're an undocumented person from Canada, you're going to get a vaccine because you are not from south of the border. That's why that comment is racist.
My organization for the last few years fighting and abolish ICE. And the main is because the budget do they have, oh my God, is more than any federal agencies, you know, FBI, CIA, you know, everybody combined, they have more money. And that's why you said defunded. Why? Because Mújica just put in clearly about the COVID. If you check those zip codes, not just in Chicago, all over the country, in the main cities, the zip codes they have more affected with the COVID is the Black and Latino. This is what it does mean is disinvestment for many, many years. You know, and why you say, you know, not invest in the ICE, invest in our communities. And this is clearly the proof about the COVID, how much affected. And we are living together, the Black and brown, Black and Black, Latino and Black communities. We are living in the same neighborhoods, go to the same schools, go like many, many places are we really share streets, share parks.
Someone, one reader had actually asked about funding and how city funds could be used towards achieving the goal of immigration reform. Do any of you guys have any ideas or have talked about how city funding could help address it, even though immigration is a federal issue, but how could the city funds be allocated to address some of those issues?
I do want to say that, you know, Artemio mentioned the state, and I think there are policies at the city that can make a difference in terms of the quality of life that immigrants can have, even when they're undocumented. And that's where we see city funding of health or city funding of, different initiatives that are open to undocumented immigrants around. Right now, we have a lot of issues around rental, COVID, and also, evictions, right? At the state level, there are some of us who played a role in making sure that undocumented youth have access to state funding in public universities, right? So a lot of these initiatives, because Artemio was saying, like, we've had to go statewide, we've had to go local, are about making life bearable, creating some ability for people to live a dignified life despite being undocumented. And even the ID, like even having people be able to have an ID, have a driver's license. All these are ways in which people can have a life, make a living, support their families, have a career. Like all these are things that help alleviate the life. And so it matters what state you live in, what city you live in. And so Chicago says it's an immigrant-friendly city. What does that mean? How does it put resources and policy into that to really make a difference for the people who are living in Chicago?
And I can mention the previous mayor. I don't want to say the name because he was the one when Obama do the immigration reform, right? But he did something good, the previous mayor. Legal assistance fund, to really help the immigrants with the legal processing. And I mentioned because really this is a big problem in our community, and we know, Amalia, right? About many people can have opportunity to stay here, but they need a lawyer, and they don't have enough. I don't have money for the lawyer. What's happening? Just sign up and go. Even many, they have opportunity, different ways. Every case are different. And that's another reasons today, right now in this legislation with Celina Villanueva, she pushing one of the bills. If we ended with May 31st, maybe we have a legal assistance fund for undocumented and the state. What is that's good, they need it. Now, this is good what the city of Chicago did the previous years ago.
Jorge, did you want to weigh in and say how city funds can be used?
Definitely, yes. Immigration services are expensive. Immigration and the post office are typically known for not having a very good budget. They depend on what people pay for those services. That makes immigration, paperwork incredibly expensive. Just to renew your green card now costs you $600 and something. Another problem, for instance, the Miranda Rights. Well, immigrants don't have Miranda Rights because they didn't commit a crime. They only committed an administrative fault. But that means that you don't have a public defender. You have to hire your own attorney, and that's incredibly expensive. And at the same time, you are being criminalized by the police, by the sheriff departments, and by all authorities. So it makes it incredibly difficult for an immigrant to really assimilate into the city, the services, the et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You pay taxes, but since you don't have a Social Security Administration number, then you don't get any benefits out of taxes. You don't get many public benefits. It's a lie that immigrants, get a lot of social benefits. That's an incredibly big lie. So helping them out, with giving them attorneys, just like public defenders, and paying for applications for DACA. How much is the application for DACA, Artemio, now? $680, $700. Just to apply. There's no guarantees. Just to apply, plus your fingerprints, plus your pictures, plus paying the attorney, plus whatever. If you're going to do something, you have to put $1,000 in advance. So city funds can go to that, very easily. It wouldn't be, a big extreme expense for any city. A city that spends, 45% of its budget on police could very easily afford, helping immigrants to do the processing for many things.
We administrate immigrants line the one they help to America, you know, the LPRs come as citizens. Well, on this budget, we are pushing for like a 4 million to help DACA because they reopened DACA, right? And exactly, Mújica put in clearly about many times they do not apply because they don't have the money. Also the legal service. Well, this, if they approve this million of dollars, like 4 million, and there's not that many, but they really can make the difference for the DACA people to apply. And also Mújica put in really clear about the undocumented pay taxes and they don't have benefits, but also they pay Social Security. And you know what, like 3 days ago, one person called me, her father is 94 years old, 94, and he is undocumented. He never, even way before 86, he was here. And he's still undocumented, he never get it, he got Social Security. Her mom came illegally, he able to adjust her status. She benefits for him, but he not benefit, he's here. It's billions of dollars every year those undocumented contribute to the Social Security. Also, they pay Medicare, medical, and they never get this money. They never got those benefits. And perception outside, sometimes they say, oh, they come and get a benefit. No, because they don't have any legal identification in the Social Security. They do not benefit, but they do pay taxes.
So we actually already reached 7 o'clock, believe it or not, we're already at the hour mark. So just the last question, maybe if each of you want to say what you think looking back is the legacy or the most important thing of those marches and that big wave of protest.
I wrote a book, you know, with all the memories of what happened in the immigration marches, and I believe the big success of those marches was the kids. Their parents were not used to demonstrate, to protest, to make signs or banners or anything like that. But the kids who went to those marches, today they are 18 and 20 and 25. And I think they know how to march, how to protest, how to make signs, how to hold banners. And my hope is in them. I think this new generation, you know, 15 years later, is going to change the conditions. What their parents couldn't do, I think the kids, the young people, the young generation has the chance to do. I hope I'm right.
I think it made, like I said before, the movement visible and led to so many people being mobilized that it then went in different directions, right? So you had years later youth organizing, March 10th, 4 years later, coming out of the shadows for the first time in Chicago, leading to a lot of organizing. You had people who started focusing a lot on workers. You had even more immigrant workers. You had organizations that were focusing on stopping, fighting deportation cases, and so on, right? So the movement now is much more complex. There are many different sectors doing things around immigrant rights, but many of them can trace the roots of their activism, whether they were as children or whether as adults, to that moment, to those marches.
I'm agree with both, and I can go for a different area. I do remember the day of the march, a reportero from La Jornada called me and said, oh my God, many years I'm asking to my company to give me this and that and help me to stay here. And they went back. It's after the marches, they see it's a business. They say, my God, look at the business in the United States with the Latinos. And they give you everything plus more and send it to Washington to stay over here. And then he called me many other companies, how much people from the immigrant community, they go up in the corporations because they see around the boards and they do not have majority Latinos. And they really, when Amalia said, they highlight about us in here. And second, all the nationality we came together. And for example, the Asian community, this a taboo. They not talk about it undocumented. This has happened, but quiet. No, now they stand up, and now with those attacks to the Asian community, they are able to stand it up, because before They no protest, they no do, they quiet. This is not happen here, but they do. I think this is come together. Africans, Irish, Italian, everybody came and solidarity with the. But they talking about a Latino issue, what is not just Latino, but the majority is like Mexicano, Mexican issue, you know. But I'm thinking this is really clear about this is the all human issue. And a good issue, you know, we have to do it in a good way. This is natural. Immigrant people, you know, the humans try to emigrate. Now when they go, this guy to the Marte, right? You know, people, we emigrate is, you know, it's a natural.
Well, I want to thank Artemio, Amalia, and Jorge for taking the time out of your evening to share your thoughts and go back 15 years ago and kind of recollect all of those thoughts and take us to where we are today. I want to thank the Chicago Sun-Times and the Chicago Community Trust for their support in this. And just want to reiterate that if you are able to and have the means to consider supporting local journalism by buying a Sun-Times subscription. So thank you, everyone. Stay safe and have a good night.
Thank you.
Gracias, thank you.
Hasta luego.
Bye, guys. Thank you so much.